What's up everyone, it's Mitch back with another Wellness Wednesday, and today we're going to be talking all about how to read faster. But before we begin, as always, there'll be timestamps here at the beginning of the video, so feel free to jump around to whatever interests you the most. Today's video will be broken down into two major sections. First, we'll talk a little bit about the science and what is actually happening when you read something. And then second, I'll provide 4 tips on how to actually improve your reading speed. So let's dive in. So what is exactly happening when you read? Well, how you read, especially how fast you read, is primarily dependent on 3 major factors. These are how well your eyes can move across a line of words on a page, your ability to cognitively process the information you're reading, and then the concept of regression. We'll talk about each of these in a bit more detail. So starting with your eye movements, there are 2 major types of eye movements that occur when you read. They are the concept of fixation and saccades. Fixation is your normal field of vision, excluding your peripheral vision. It's where you're focusing on something or directly looking. Saccades are rapid, jerky eye movements that we use to scan across something really quickly. When we read, our eyes move in saccadic fashion, and then we fixate on a particular word. Now, the average length of each saccade is about 2 degrees, which is similar to about 7 to 8 letters. On average, it takes about 30 milliseconds for each saccadic movement to occur. And then each fixation takes anywhere from 100 to 250 milliseconds. Next, we have the cognitive process, or your ability to understand what you're reading. Your cognitive processing ability is really dependent on your own body's capacity for a working memory. When you read something, this translates into temporary pauses to understand exactly what you're reading. This process on average takes anywhere from 300 to 500 milliseconds. And then last is the concept of regression. Regression is rereading something you've already read but didn't quite comprehend. This process is highly variable depending on the time and place and the specific individual who's doing the reading. But obviously limiting this factor will increase your reading speed. So moving on to the 4 tips to help improve your reading speeds. Tip number 1, and probably the most important, is to break the subvocalization that occurs while you read. Subvocalization, never heard of that one. Subvocalization is reading every single word out loud in your head while you read silently. And this process or idea was first established in our minds when we first learned how to read. For most of us, the last time we took any class called reading was probably grade school. At least I think I was. And in this reading class, we're taught to read silently the same way we're taught to read out loud. That is, we pronounce every single word when we read. Well, doing this means that your reading speed is equivocal to your speaking speed because you talk through every word just like you're reading it out loud. This makes sense then that the average reading speed is identical to the average speaking speed. They're both about 200 to 250 words per minute. So our goal is to get rid of the subvocalization. Just karate chop it out. In order to accomplish this, we want to begin to read with our eyes instead of reading like we're speaking every single word out loud. This idea is kind of similar to when we see a restaurant sign. When you see that big glowing red chicken sign, your brain automatically thinks, I just want food. Well, maybe some of us. Anytime you pass a Chick-fil-A sign, you don't continually say Chick-fil-A, Chick-fil-A in your head. You just read it with your eyes and understand the meaning of it. Okay, maybe this is actually a terrible example. Anyways, back to the point. In order to best read with your eyes only, you have to train yourself to read and utilize those saccadic movements. The best way to achieve this is to set little checkpoints around groups of words for each line. This way you read groups of words all at once instead of each word individually. Your brain can surprisingly still comprehend everything that's going on, but it just takes a little practice. Tip number 2 is use a pen or your finger in order to trace under each line that you read. This keeps your eyes exactly focused on where you want them to be because our eyes do have a tendency to dance around a little bit. Dancing eyes. Dancing eyes. It also facilitates easier saccadic movements from your eyes and keeps you locked into those checkpoints that we set a little bit ago. Tip number 3. Be mindful while you're reading. If you want to read faster while maintaining a high comprehension rate, you have to focus on what you're reading. This means getting to a nice quiet place and just focus on the reading at hand. Tip number 4, read as often as you can and read challenging material. I know this sounds kind of self-explanatory, but reading is a skill, and just like any skill, it takes a lot of practice to get really good at it. So, in order to put these 4 tips into practice, first, figure out your baseline reading speed in words per minute. This can be achieved either online or just picking a couple of random pages and setting a little timer for yourself and see how many words you can read. Then practice each of these tips and see how much your reading speed increases. I think it's kind of important to mention that your comprehension isn't going to be what it was at first, but with continual practice, you will get faster at reading while maintaining the same level of comprehension. As always, thank you so much for checking out this video. If you're interested in more content like this, please hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a video in the future. If you try to increase your reading speeds, leave a comment down below and let me know how it goes. Again, thank you, and I will catch you all on the next one.